Mr. Hazzi, how's it going?
Excellent. How you doing?
I'm super excited, man. I think this is going super well. We see got some people signing on already. Welcome, guys. Eliana, can you just hit us up in the chat? Make sure our chat's working. And for everyone, I'll say this a few times during the session, but for anyone who wants a replay that does not have access to REW Academy Premium, just pop your name and email down below in the chat, and we'll make sure we send you a replay link. Okay, so AJ today is going to be talking about building a scalable sales process, but he and I were just talking about this prior to the webinar, and this is part of a series, guys. So AJ has already talked about 7 levers of success and lead conversion and all that sort of stuff. So it's really important for you guys to access that academy and just sort of watch and be able to rewatch your sessions, as well as download any of the assets. If there's any links, if there's any files, if there's anything that gets shared that AJ talks about, Eliana will capture that for the sessions as well and make them downloadable. And so, yeah, if anyone, and as a reminder, it's 30 days free for the REW Academy. So you can go check it out as much as you want. So just pop your name and email down in the chat and we'll get you hooked up. But for today, AJ, we are talking about building a scalable sales process. And so for anyone who doesn't know, AJ is one of our favorite Canadian clients and one of our favorite clients. But more importantly, for this Academy session, AJ is one of our most successful users. He runs a brokerage, which I think you call it a teamridge. Is that right, AJ? And AJ has just been crushing it with his web strategy, with his ISA strategy, and with a business that is really built on service and process and building scale. And so AJ will be talking today about building that scalable sales process. So welcome, AJ. You have the floor.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you guys having me back. Hope you guys aren't tired of hearing my voice by this point. So today we are going to talk about building a sales system that scales. And as Morgan said, this really does build upon what we've taught already. We shared going from the mindset of a top producer to becoming a CEO of your own company. We talked in a previous session about how to create a lead conversion process that scales. Now, this is all about taking your sales process and being able to download that to the people that work with you and in a scalable way. And I know when Morgan and I talk about our various businesses, we say the word scale a lot. It's become somewhat of even a platitude in the entrepreneurship kind of world, because everyone's talking about scale. It's not just about growth. It's about leverage. It's about doing things in a repeatable, predictable way so that you can uphold a very, very high standard of service within your company. And so that's what I'm excited to share with you guys today. This is totally fresh content. So the good news on that is no one's ever heard this before. The bad news, of course, is that I've not practiced this deck at all. So you're going to have to listen to me stumble through it, as is the usual when I do these for you guys. But I think the content is better than the presentation. So we've all seen my little video before. I won't do that. Who am I? I'm the broker owner of Vantage West Realty in Kelowna, BC. I'm also the founder of the Vantage West Academy, and I am teaching these things to people all over the world right now on how to build scalable, predictable revenue streams within their business and how to get off the tools themselves. So talking about scalability, this all comes down to mindset. Right? We have to, in order to reach production like this, my company is nowhere near the size of what Morgan's built, but we've built up to over 300 million in sales per year. And I can tell you, I'm not the one doing any of those sales. I'm not going on listing appointments. I'm not dealing with new buyers. This is all totally done by my team now. And in order to do that, you can't rely on your talent. You can't rely on, your own charisma that got you to this point. I mean, I can imagine if you're on this call and you can afford Morgan's fees, you've obviously been pretty successful in your own respect as a realtor. But to get to this level of production, to get to, $250 million a year or beyond, there's guys doing even far more than myself. You need to document and need to systemize your sales process. So as I mentioned, we talked about a lead conversion system before, and I spent the better part of an hour talking about how you can turn the dials up on your leads. That's the easiest one. You just call Morgan and say, I want to spend some more money. But then how to get these people on the phone. There's a particular process that you would go through to increase the amount of people of those leads that you're actually connecting with. And then there's dialogues and scripts and processes you can use that we talked about to make sure that the people you're connecting with are booking meetings with you and are coming to listing presentations and buyer presentations. And then there's simple systems and processes you can implement to make sure that the people who you book actually show up to those meetings. And then there's presentations and a process that is required in order to get the people who show up to actually sign an agency agreement with you. And then after that, once you've got them under agency, there's a whole sales process that you can take people through to make sure that they result in transactions. And that's what today is going to be about. It's about picking up where this one left off. Now we've got them under contract. What are we going to do? How are we going to serve them so that they become raving fans of our business? So I love this quote. Shiv Singh says, the purpose of a business is to create a customer who creates customers. So this is what we call the flywheel effect. Okay. You get these new leads, they come into your business. Many of us are working almost exclusively by referral, but we're moving now into the space of using digital marketing to bring more leads and more clientele into our business. And then we've got mass marketing, which supports the whole effort and keeps you top of mind. But once you've done that, once you've generated the leads, then you need a whole process around creating a 5-star experience for your clients. And that starts with your presentation. And then it moves through your consultative process, your proven process for getting clients from where they are to the whatever success is for them. And then moments of magic along the way. These are the memorable things that you do when you're at your absolute best, when you're on your A game. These are the things you do to take clients and turn them into walking, talking billboards. And then, of course, you've got your advocacy process, which is your organizational promise or the promise script that you would give at the end of the presentation, where you set expectations and you let them know that your goal is to do such a great job that they feel compelled to give you a 5-star review and tell the world about you. Then you've got your retention strategy, and all of that serves to feed back up into your new leads, and around and around it goes. So this is the flywheel effect. And when you create this and you have systems and processes around each one of these things, then you can build a scalable business that does not require you to be doing every single one of the action items. Which leads us to a thought exercise. And I said this in a previous webinar, but I suspect a few of you haven't heard this. Your clientele requires your standard of service, not your physical presence. Okay? You have to let that sink in, because I think a lot of us as practitioners, we think that the customer needs us. We think that that's what they demand of us, that we're going to need to be the one that shows up to their house to give them the consultation, that they expect us to be out doing the showings with them. They expect us to be handling all the marketing tasks. And we think that if we pass them to a team member, that they're going to feel like they've been demoted, that they've gone from first class to coach. And that is simply not the reality. My experience as a person who went from top producer to CEO and business owner is that the clients are actually getting a way better service now than they were when I was on the tools. Because I think we can all agree, and feel free to give me a thumbs up or a heck yeah in the chat if you agree. But our clients, when we're busy, don't always get the best of us. Sometimes they get what's left of us. Sometimes if we've got family stuff going on, or maybe we're not taking care of ourselves as well as we could be. We go through seasons where, we're not eating right, we're not exercising, or maybe we're just overworked, we're too busy. Sometimes people are not getting our absolute A game. And we can get away with that as realtors if we're great, if we're talented, and if we really, kind of by the seat of our pants or by the grace of God, we can still give people a pretty good experience, but they're not getting your absolute best. Like if you think about your client that got the best of you and you compare it to what the average person gets, I'm pretty sure that it's not the same experience. And so what I've been able to do now is I've been able to take the best, me on my best day, and document that. And then that's the standard that we uphold. That's what every client that comes through Vantage West now experiences, because there's a process and the new agents have been trained on that, and they're not stretched as thin as I am. And so the clients actually are getting a better service now, and they're getting my standard of service. I'm still the quarterback. I still wrote the playbook. So they get to experience my standard, but they do not require my physical presence. So that's a really important piece. You got to get out of this idea that you have to micromanage everything and that you need to be the one physically performing every task. The other reason why this is really important is because assuming you want to grow a business, build value inside of a company, and eventually one day get off the tools, assuming that you're going to need people to do the work with you. Talent does not transfer. And if you're relying on your natural ability, like you don't need processes to go out and sell real estate. We know that. You can go based on your innate ability, but you can't transfer that ability to another agent by osmosis. So I say talent doesn't transfer, but systems do. And this was something that I learned once I brought on a consultant who is now our director of operations, but he taught me the power of systems. And that's now what we do inside of Vantage Academy, is teach people how to put systems into their business. So what the heck is a system? Well, simply put, a system is an organized collection of parts or subsystems that are highly integrated to accomplish an overall goal. And that overall goal, of course, is to get a customer who creates other customers for us, right? So we need a system around that. The problem that most of us face is that we're salespeople. We're not necessarily systems people. A lot of us are very macro in our thinking. A lot of us are visionaries, not integrators. And it can be a daunting task to systemize your business. And this is what prevents, and this is why I think a lot of people are stuck where they are and they can't leverage their way out of production, is because they actually don't know where to start when it comes to systemizing their business. If you're experiencing that, let me know in the chat. I'd love to chat with you more about that, because I spent 6-7 years in this spot, just stuck, that I couldn't get out of it because I didn't know how to, or where to even start creating systems in my business. So let's talk about it. What a system is really just a collection of your processes. So, I mean, here's a list, by no means comprehensive, of the processes you might want to start with. Now, don't feel like you have to write all this stuff down. We'll make the deck available to you guys. If you request it, you can just get a PDF of the deck and you'll have all the notes. But you're going to want a system around lead conversion, which is that entire 1-hour webinar. That is the system, as far as I'm concerned, on lead conversion. Then you're going to want a system around client onboarding. So once you've converted the leads, how do you bring someone into your world? What's your process for onboarding the new client? And then your consultative process, getting people to their desired result, whether they're buying or selling. What is your process? Your company's consultative process for doing that. That's your sales process. You're going to want a closing process. Now, you naturally can influence people to make a decision, but there's a way that you can document it, where you can take someone who maybe isn't such a natural closer and you help them with a process where they can get the same result. You should also have a negotiations process. I know a lot of us have drifted from the old school days of doing it belly to belly or kneecap to kneecap, and we're relying now on technology, text messages, but we're missing a big piece of value there. So I really think that it would be an intelligent move for everybody on this call to have an actual negotiations process, which is, how you do your information discovery, how you frame the meeting, where you set it up, whether it's on Zoom, and actually have a process that you can train your agents on so that they can stand out in the marketplace. It's one of the most referable skills. So one of the things we spend more time than anything on is our negotiations process. You should also have a process for transaction management. This is, if you think about the client, put yourself in their shoes and go, what would you want to see from the moment you sign the contract all the way through to closing? What are the steps that you would want to have in there to make sure that their level-o-meter stays on high the whole way through, that at no point do they feel like they're in no man's land? You're anticipating what they need and giving it to them before they realize they need it. That's the perfect level of service through transaction management. You want to document and process that. So just remember yourself on your best day. How did you handle that transaction? Document it. That's how you want your agents to handle the transaction, and eventually your transaction managers, et cetera. Then you've got your client appreciation process. So there's lots of different ways to do this, but you want to make sure that you document your service. We use a day 1, day 7, day 30 process, and then more like a Brian Buffini style client appreciation program thereafter. But you want to make sure you document, how are you caring for your people? How are you appreciating your clients? And you want to make sure that that's a standard that can be upheld no matter who's doing the transaction in your organization. And then your advocacy process. What's your system around getting reviews? What's your system around cultivating and mining for referrals and motivating people to want to give referrals? And that doesn't mean bribing them. I just mean doing such a great job that that they feel compelled and endeared towards your company, and they tell the world. So this is just a small collection of processes, which I agree could seem a little daunting to have to put all this stuff together. So let's talk about that. How do you create a process? Well, step one, do the task yourself. And the good news is I think a lot of us have no choice but to do the task ourselves right now. So you're going to do it, but I mean, do it intentionally. Think about it. Okay, if I was going to run this next client to absolute perfection, how would I do it? What would be the steps I would take? And you want to make sure that you do everything at your very, very best. And while you're doing that, write down every single step. Write down to the most ridiculous thing, okay? And then once you've got all your steps, you'll structure this into a high-level overview, and then you'll break some of those steps down into even smaller items that will become checklists. Checklists are a great way to make sure that none of these little minor steps get missed. And then this collection of checklists will eventually become your procedural manual, and you can flesh it out using fancy images and videos and external resources that explain everything. But this is how you create a process, but it doesn't need to be this complicated, okay? This is a simple way to create a process. So you'll breathe a sigh of relief. You don't need to do what I just said right off the bat, although at some point you will. In the beginning, do the task yourself, write down how you did it, don't leave any steps out, create a checklist. That's it. You just need a checklist for everything. That's all you need to do, and now you have processes. So here's an example. This is our sales process for sellers, right? And so every one of these little items will have its own checklist that attaches to it. So you've got the client intake. So this is, the listing appointment. I'll have a checklist for my stager, the things I want her to do. I have a checklist for my photographer. I have a checklist for what needs to happen during the coming soon program. And some people are using that, some people aren't, but coming soon for us is very important. We've got a checklist for our listing launch. We've got a checklist for the people who handle the showings, the coordination and the showing feedback. We have a checklist for market plan review. And this is our proprietary thing that we do every 3 weeks with our sellers to go over the marketing, go over the feedback from their showings, and then ultimately do a price reduction if that's what's necessary. And does anybody remember price reductions back when houses didn't sell day one for 100 grand over asking? But you got to have a process for every market. So the market plan review is something that we trained our agents on, so that every listing we took would follow this sequence, and they would follow the checklists within these sequence. And lo and behold, it didn't require me to go on the presentation. It didn't require me to go handle the pricing, because there was a system and a checklist for every one of these things. Right. And so this carries on. You've got your negotiations checklist. You've got your transaction management checklist. Key handoff, such a big pivotal moment. You should have a checklist for that. And then obviously your after sale program. So here's a look at one of our checklists. This is the very first one of what we've got there. So it doesn't have to be fancy. Logo at the top, listing system checklist. So you can see, 1 through 7 is all about prior to that presentation, right? So sticking to the script, delivering the value proposition, getting their commitment not to sign with anybody else, positioning the appointment as last. These are all the things that are going to increase the likelihood that we'll be able to get a signature when we go to the home. Then you've got your first impression, right? And this is all stuff that happens that some of it will seem ridiculous. Like we ask them to visualize in their car when they're sitting outside, spend 5 minutes visualizing each step, read this checklist first, and then visualize the outcome. Arrive at the door precisely on time. Precision is key. Parking on the road. It seems silly, but a lot of people get offended if you park in the driveway. So just a simple step. All we're trying to do is increase the likelihood these guys are going to get the listing appointment signed. Look sharp, smell great, dress a step above the competition. Shake hands, look them in the eyes while you do it. It sounds ridiculous, but you know what? There's a lot of people that for whatever reason weren't taught the value of a firm handshake and eye contact. So we put it in there. This is me on my best day, and now I'm transferring it to my agent saying this is what you need to do in order to increase the likelihood. Walk around the exterior first. It's a differentiator. Most people go right into the house. You want to appear different, take a lap around the house in the beginning with the agent. Have a notepad with you. When you come inside, you take control, direct the conversation into a well-lit dining area, avoid the living room, little things. Do the interior walkthrough. If you need to reposition because the comps you brought are no good, or you think that you maybe aren't in a position to do this in a 1-step, you decide at that moment to 2-step. If you're going to go ahead with it, return to the dining area, direct the client where you want them to sit. Again, you're getting them to see who's in control. And then with excellent eye contact, you confidently state, this home will sell. this all sounds ridiculous, but I haven't even begun the presentation yet. There's 17 steps that I want my agents to follow before they've even opened up their laptop and begun the listing presentation. And all of these things are increasing the likelihood of that end result. And these are all the things that me as a pro, who I really believe in myself, and I can go and wing it, show up 3 minutes late, whip out my laptop, miss these steps, go in there, and probably get the listing. And for that reason, I probably think I don't need these things. But the fact is, these are the things that are going to make it so that your presence is not required. And you can send somebody who's only been on the team for 6 months, and they're going to go and they're going to get the listing, and the client's going to have an amazing experience because you've standardized a level of service. Same thing, you go into the presentation, asking consultative questions. There's a whole series of questions that we ask. Communicating our marketing plan, all of our differentiations, sharing our guarantees, our cancellations, all of this, right? And this goes all the way down. We've got steps around pricing. We've got steps around how to actually close and assume the sale. All of these things are documented. And then the last step, which is delivering the promise script before leaving. And that's part of our advocacy program, right? So every one of these, this is also a checklist. If they didn't get the listing, they can go back here and audit what it is that they didn't maybe do to try to ascertain what they could have done better and how they can improve for next time. So it's a really, really handy thing. I'm not going to go through all of our checklists with you guys, so we don't have the time for that today, but I wanted to show you what one of these checklists look like. By the way, put your name in the chat if you want me to send you this particular checklist. It's worked very, very well. I know getting listings right now are a major premium for most people. Any listing appointment you get, you want to make absolute sure that you give yourself the highest chance of securing that listing. So this is a great checklist that we've used, and I can confidently send any one of my agents to any listing and know that they're going to get it. So dump your name in the chat and we will get this off to you. All right, staying on sellers now, we also have what's called a chain of commitment. So our sales process with sellers is to make sure that at no point do they ever feel like they're in no man's land or untethered, or that they're wondering what the next step in the process is. A consultative process means you've got a, paint by numbers, or this is how we do it here process to bring them to their desired result. So for us, our chain of commitment is like this. It starts with a listing consultation. Sometimes we'll do the consult and the presentation in one step. Sometimes it's a two-step. So if it's a two-step, we'll book the consult, and then at the consult, we'll book the presentation. Not, I'll call you this later next week and we'll make a time. You must stay connected. You must always have the next step in the process booked. The next one would be our pre-launch marketing review. So assuming I got the listing that night, we're going to book that next thing in the calendar. It says, okay, we're going to be going live on this day. The day before, we're going to have a meeting where we're going to just go through the marketing, go through the photographs, go through the copy that I'm using, make sure you're happy with it, right? And then you're going to want to make sure that you've got a weekly check-in in the calendar. I like to make my calls on Fridays. And so there would be a weekly check-in booked. So they know they've got that time with you already booked. And then you let them know and set the expectations that there's a market plan review coming. So if listings don't sell themselves in 7 days, at least they know on day 14 and then every 3 weeks thereafter, you're going to get together and you're going to do a market plan review. So for us, we do a 3P system, which is we talk about the promotion and we show them, prove to them that it's not for lack of promotion that their home hasn't sold. So there's that demonstration. And then we talk about the product. That's the second P, where we go, okay, there's been a few people who've said that it's a little dated or that it's this, and we can talk about what do we want to do? Do we want to improve the product to account for that? Or do we want to move on to the third P, which is price? And so if the promotion is good and we're not going to change the product, then it only leaves one other lever to pull, and that's price. And so this is a system around taking someone who maybe isn't as gifted at having the authority to tell people to lower their price, but you walk them through a consultative process that lets them self-discover that they need to reduce their price. So again, each one of these parts of the chain of commitment has a process attached to it as well. And of course, you repeat your weekly check-ins and your market plan reviews until sold. And following this system, this chain of commitment, it doesn't matter who on my team takes the listing. I have a very high level of certainty that that listing is going to be sold. And if it isn't, I can diagnose it by trying to figure out which part of the chain of commitment have you disconnected from. Hope that's making sense. And then we've got the moments of magic, right? So this is our client experience. This is our advocacy program, right? And so these are all standardized. This is all going to happen no matter who takes the listing, no matter what on our team. So take the listing, a personal note's going to go out. By the way, you can outsource that with a really cool tool through handwritten.com. I have just started to work with these guys, but you can actually they take a pen and a robotic arm. Like, so it's really a ballpoint pen that writes, and it's actual handwriting. And it looks really, really good. You'd never know. Self-addressed, handwritten envelopes and everything. So unless the person's seen your handwriting before, they would have no idea that didn't come from you. So that's great. It's about $3 per delivered note. So you can standardize that. If you don't think your agents are going to do personal notes, just outsource it. But we get all of our agents to write handwritten notes still, and it works very, very well. We have a welcome letter that comes from me. So they get the personal note from the agent. They get a welcome letter shortly thereafter from me. One of our admins sets them up on a nosy neighbor setup, so they get to see anything around them that has sold or has hit the market. So this keeps them really connected to the market without them constantly wondering. We have a staging consultant that goes through. That's a nice little moment of magic. They love that. It's an unexpected extra. We've got a handyman service that we send just to do a couple last minute little touch-ups, get the gutters pointing in the right direction, go in there, do a lick of paint where needed. We have a little stress reliever kit that gets sent out, which is a really cool little thing. You can get those, by the way, those stress reliever kits through Client Giant. That's a great outsourced client experience company. We've got champagne and treats that go out at subject removal. It's a celebratory time. You want to make sure that there's excitement around this moment. And then we'll take the professional photos we did of the home, and we'll make a commemorative book of the property. I mean, a lot of people have high levels of sentiment when it comes to their home, and a commemorative book with the exterior photo as the cover and the nice interior photos within. It gets a great response. And when we weave these moments of magic into a standardized level of care, this is how you create a steady stream of 5-star reviews on Google that also feed back into that flywheel effect, right? That's the advocacy program that gets people becoming advocates of your business. And you've done that through standardizing a client experience that you couldn't imagine being any better. Same thing with buyers, right? We've got a whole chain of commitment with buyers, starting with the client intake, which we do a buyer's presentation, very similar to how you would with a listing presentation. Gain their agreement. We book the next meeting, which is market education. That's where we go out and look at homes, not for the purpose of buying, but purely just to get educated, to refine our criteria. Then we never leave that meeting without booking the next meeting. So I think a lot of people in the sales process, where things fall down, is that they're leading with listings. They're expecting a listing that hits through the portal to excite them enough to want to call you and book a showing. And a lot of people will detach from the process that way. So what we do is we book the next round of showings, even when we have no idea what we're going to show. That's the sales process. And then it's our job to backfill and make sure there's stuff to look at that day, which may involve looking at stuff that's coming soon, off-market stuff, or it may be that we're having to move the showing into the future. But there should never be a point in time for you or any of your agents where they don't have the next step booked and in the calendar. This is how you keep control. This is how you maintain leadership and how you maintain the lead in the client experience. So this is what we train our agents on. Then obviously showings eventually translate into negotiations. You'll have documents and checklists around every one of these things, as I mentioned, and on it goes. So buyers, they've got this chain of commitment. It goes from the buyer consult to market education to showings, which always result in a debrief back at the office. What does the debrief do? Well, you're either opening the parameters or you're narrowing the parameters to eventually you're going to have the offer submitted, your contingencies removed, and you're going to have them closed. This is the chain of commitment. You need to be able to train this to your agent. So you should have a documented process for each one of these items. And then that way you're able to transfer your system for success into just about anybody that comes onto your team. And then same thing with buyers, moments of magic woven into it. You want the buyers to have an amazing experience. So you got to have personal notes going out. Subject removals, we like to do fruit bouquets or chocolates. Little tip, send them to the person's place of work. And so everybody can see what an amazing realtor they've got. You've got a moving concierge, both sellers and buyers. Actually, we have a moving concierge that they can use. We've got a key handoff and a little new home survival kit that's got toilet paper and some cleaning products and different things in there. Then we follow a 1-7-30 follow-up where we do the gift on day 1. We do a movie night day 7, which is Amazon gift card and a few things. Again, you can do that through Client Giant. And then on day 30, we do a handyman service where we'll send somebody out there a couple hours and just take care of a few odds and ends. I have a handyman company that we've used now to vertically integrate, so it's a little easier for me to do this because I got a guy on salary. But it's a really nice touch to send a person up there just to do a couple of the things that are on the honey-do list, or a couple of the little things that they've seen now after 30 days in the home that they're like, oh, I wish that was a little tightened up. The handyman can go and do those things. And then you've got the retention plan. So quarterly gifts for a year. Client Giant does a great job of these. They're like $15, $20 gifts, similar to what you would find in like a Brian Buffini style client appreciation program. And what we're going to start doing is when someone closes, we're going to put them on 1 year subscription of this, with the intention that we're trying to figure out who our advocates are, who are those people who are highly referrally minded. And if we're going to track it, and if they send us a referral inside of a year, they'll stay on the program. If they don't, they'll just step down to a program where we're not spending quite as much money annually. They're still going to be in a client appreciation program, get invites to events and things like that. We'll still remember their birthday, all those things, but we're not going to send $25 gifts to them each quarter. So this adds $100 to your, per client closing, but I think it goes a long way to duplicating those clients and creating that flywheel effect. And again, you can have this all automated for you. Go to clientgiant.com. I don't own a piece of Client Giant, by the way. I know I'm plugging them a lot. But again, these moments of magic woven through are going to help you create these 5-star experiences. There's also tweaks that you have to make for both buyers and sellers, whether you're in a low inventory market or a high inventory market. Now, I think a lot of us have probably never experienced a high inventory market, but there's a different set of skills that are required for each one. So in a low inventory market, when you're serving buyers, you're more reactive to what's happening. So you want to make sure that your clients you've set expectations. They drive by the properties first. They're taking virtual tours first. They've done a needs versus wants assessment, or you've done that for them online and say, okay, well, given what we talked about, this really doesn't meet some of your must-haves, right? You're trying to eliminate some stuff. Because in this market, when it's low inventory, there's so much wasted time running out and being reactive, looking at showing. So you want to train your agents how to stay in control of their time and mitigate these unnecessary showings. You want to make sure they've got their financing all squared away. You want to make sure that potentially they're bringing inspectors to their showing, because a lot of times you have to come in without any conditions, and they're doing a lot of due diligence in advance. So these are skills required to operate inside of a low inventory world. And so we train this. We've got checklists for this, procedural pieces for low inventory buyer market. But you also need the opposite. So when there's lots of inventory and it's a buyer's market, buyers are often a little bit apprehensive about taking the plunge. They're no longer the ones initiating contact. We have to be proactive and start initiating contact, which means we have to be really diligent to always make sure we've got showing times in the calendar, always booked. It's never a problem figuring out what you're going to show in a high inventory market. And it's really about learning the skills around a process of elimination, right? And we tell clients that buying a home is really less about selection and more about elimination. And we do it in a tournament style. So you go out, you look at 3 homes, you pick a winner. You go out and look at another 3 homes, you pick a winner. And then you have the finals, the winner versus the winner, and you see which one ends up being the most, the best fit for your clients, and you endorse that one. That's the sales process in a high inventory market. And then, of course, you've got skills and checklists around aggressive negotiation, and then you get to do your due diligence after you've got an accepted offer in a high inventory. So again, just the differences between the two. All of them have to be documented, systemized. Market education, same thing. When in a low inventory market, the whole purpose of going out and looking at homes, and they can be ones that are under contract, it doesn't matter, is you're setting expectations around what stuff sells for, and you're getting them in a position where they're ready to pounce once they see value. And the purpose of market education is about opening up their parameters, because likely there isn't going to be much for them to look at. So if they've got a $700,000 budget and they want a single family home, you need to maybe get their heads around the idea that maybe they're looking at townhomes, or maybe they're looking at infill, or maybe they're looking at half duplexes, right? So it's all about opening their mind to other options. Conversely, in a high inventory market education, that's that first time you go out looking with them, you've got some things you want to accomplish. So one of those is setting their expectations around what things sell for. The next one is actually getting them excited, because you're going to you don't have FOMO creating the sales pressure. You're going to get excitement. So you want to get them excited and engaged in the process. That's your job. And then you want to narrow their search parameters, right? So In a low inventory market, it's about opening. In a high inventory market, it's about closing off some of these options and narrowing it down to just what they need. So different skills for different markets all needs to be documented. And then, of course, you've got your closing process. This is how you influence somebody to commit, or how do you influence them to take that next step. And closing could be closing after the buyer's presentation. It could be closing after the listing presentation. We have a simple system for closing in each one of these scenarios. But for example, our simple system for closing when you're out on a showing would be to start from the macro and work your way down to the micro. So if you're getting the feeling from somebody that you think that this home would be for them and you want to endorse it, you would say, start with the macro. So we love the area. This is an area we want to be in, obviously. And then they say, yeah, great. And then we go chunk it down a little further. Say, what do you think about the property? Do you like the lot, its location within the area? Yeah, we love the lot. We love the lot. Okay, fantastic. And then you go, and then the bones of the house. What do we think about, the floor plan? Can you see yourselves living here? Do you think your life would fit in here? Right? And they say, yeah, we like the bones. And remember, I say the bones because cosmetics can be changed. It's very hard to find a home that is decorated the way that they want, on a lot that they love, in a neighborhood they love, in a price range they can afford. So I always say, kind of decor aside, do you love the bones of this house? Does the layout work for you? Could you see your life fitting in here? Does it work for your family? And if they say yes, then you ask the next question, which is this the one you want to make an offer on? Or should we go back to the office and write this up, right? And that's where, once you've gotten the 3 yeses, then you recommend that you go and write an offer. That works really, really well. It's not pushy, it's consultative. It helps them self-discover that this is the property for them. And it takes somebody who could be new in the business, who maybe has been very facilitating their whole career so far and hasn't really motivated anybody to do anything. And it gives them steps that they can take to get people to make a decision. And so again, you're able to build this wonderful client experience. It's never pushy, but it does result in actual sales happening. So again, you got to have your closing process documented. You're going to do it differently than me, but you want to make sure that before you hand over clients to someone else, that you've gone from client intake all the way through to closing, and everything's documented and everything's trained. And then once you've got all those processes, you can get fancy with it, and you can start. You can pay Fiverr to create little artistic covers for them, and you can put them all into books. And then and you've got yourself a proper procedural manual, complete with illustrations and everything. And you've got IP in your business that's valuable, saleable, and it'll help you build a wonderful, scalable business that you can eventually step away from, travel, hang with your family, and just monitor the metrics. That's an exciting place to be. And that's where I hope each and every one of you, if that's your desire, can get to. And if you do need some help doing that, this is the exact kind of thing that we're doing inside of Vantage Academy to help you guys get there. So there, it's it. That's the presentation. Kept it under 40 minutes.
All right, this is awesome, man. And so in terms of, like, obviously we've got this academy going on, and people can subscribe to all this sort of stuff, which is great. You guys are awesome. But if they want more hands-on, if they want you to work directly with their company, which I know obviously you do, and you do very well, what's the best way? And Eliana will repeat this in the chat. What's the best way to get a hold of you to sort of talk about how you might be able to come in and help them?
Sure. Lots of different ways. I mean, you can send me a text message. You can throw my number, my personal cell, right in the chat. You can send me an email, vantagewestacademy@gmail.com. You can follow me on Instagram and send me a direct message. I'm at VW Academy on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook, AJ Hazzi on Facebook. Send me a message, whatever works for you. I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. I don't make myself invisible, that's for sure. So, yeah, but the easiest probably way is to send me a quick text, 250-864-6433. Super simple.
Nice. And we'll share that with everyone. Now, we have some questions here, and we have some time for questions. Eliana, do you want to go up and just repeat? By the way, guys, this is Eliana Fadjalon. She is our videographer extraordinaire, but she's also taken on responsibility for the REW Academy too. So we're very excited to have her on the call. Eliana, can you hear us okay?
I can hear you guys loud and clear. Thanks, Morgan.
She's Australian, but we're adopting her, so she's got that great voice. But so yeah, Eliana, what are some of the questions that came up via this chat here?
I know that you did ask a question earlier, and you mentioned, did you pay for the moments of magic, i.e. handyman, or does a seller pay? This is going back to the magic moments slides that we had.
It depends. So we send a staging consultant to the house, and they're going to give a bit of a honey-do list. So the staging consultant we pay. The honey-do list is typically at their expense. But there are certain properties, there's certain times where we will just send our guy up there. If it's just like a couple things, if it's a couple hours worth, we'll send it up. We're looking at trying to keep it around 100, 150 bucks.
She said, what company do you use for the book and what is the cost?
Yeah, I think the question is, who do you use to produce the books?
Yeah, we're just using the ones that go through Apple. There's also a couple apps that we've found. To be honest with you, I've been a little bit detached from finding the vendors on that kind of thing for a while, but I'd have to double check. I know we were using Apple for some time. There's lots of companies out there that do that though.
Awesome. Great. Audio issues for Eliana. So other questions. You said that, was it Client Giant?
Client Giant.
Yeah. So what are the fees for like some of those things?
They've got a range. So they've got their gold, platinum, titanium levels. And so you would just determine maybe a percentage that you want to reinvest back in based on your gross commission amount. So, I mean, it's not the cheapest option. You can definitely do it cheaper for yourself, but you're starting around 300 bucks and then going to over 1,000, depending on the program you want to put each client on. But you really got to start to see that kind of thing as an investment and not as an expense, right? It's kind of like spending 10 grand a month with Morgan. Not an expense. It's an investment because the ROI is there and it's proven.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And it's, it's funny, like you said something which really stood out for me. And that was, and this is something I actually learned from Josh Altman as well. Maybe he stole it from you. But the doing things very visibly to generate referrals. So like, I think you said, send the flowers or the chocolates or whatever to their work, which I think is brilliant. And Josh had said, what he does is he brings in a private chef to cook the first meal in the house.
Very cool.
But of course, he tells the buyer or the seller or whatever to invite all their friends, and he invites himself, of course, as well, right? And so
that's a great closing gift,
right? Yeah, because you bring a personal chef, and of course he's in Beverly Hills, right? But so everything's a little showy and whatever, right? But what an idea to basically be like, hey, I would like to, cook your first meal for you with a private chef. I'll be attending. Invite anyone you want. Right? Like, and because people see it, they're like, wow, your realtor's so awesome. It's just like that. I posted a hashtag realtor envy. I think Aaron liked it. And that's, because like what happens when you get flowers at work? What do all your coworkers say? I mean, I know my wife is actually on this call. Maybe I should get some flowers at work, I think it's equal opportunity here, but like what happens when like, that was such an epiphany for me. When someone gets a gift at work or whatever, all their coworkers go, wow, who'd you get that from? That's so brilliant, man. That is, I mean, that I cannot not do that now because it's awesome. Other questions. So we talked about this a lot. Obviously, Carly and I are in this early transition period of, individual realtor doing exactly what you were saying before, where we don't rely on scripts and checklists and everything else because we have that combination of talent and charisma and just too many leads and all that sort of stuff. But what do we do first? If we really want to lean in and say, okay, it's time for a team. It's time, like, do you build out the playbooks and hire someone like yourself first? Or do you go get that first assistant first? Like that's, I think one of the biggest things about people starting is the biggest challenge is just starting. Where do you start?
Awesome question. I mean, I think if it's just you and only you, you want to probably get some help, get some leverage right away, which is an assistant. It's so liberating to have an assistant. Now that's something that I can help you with. And we've got a particular surprise. We have a process and a system for hiring, but there's a system where we'll get hundreds of applicants, and we've got a really great process for making sure that the top talent rises to the top. You want to get yourself a great assistant because that's what's going to enable you to start to build out these processes, right? A good assistant's going to make creating this playbook so much easier because it's not going to be you having to do it and document it, et cetera. You can put your chicken scratch down in a notebook and hand it to your assistant and say, this is what we want to do. Here's where we're trying to go with it. And a good assistant can can organize it and format it and make it beautiful. So I think an assistant is where you would want to start. But in terms of getting some help, I mean, I wish I would have started in the consulting, like started getting consulting way sooner. I waited till I had repeated the same year of experience, maybe 5 years in a row, where I realized that I'd kind of reached the ceiling of complexity for me. I was doing about 100 transactions a year and I was doing it consistently, but I couldn't break through. And it was me and an assistant, but I didn't, but again, it was purely based on my talent. It was purely based on me being able to go out and sort of charm my way through. And I would drop balls, but I would cover up my mistakes with more charm, and it was okay. And, but I had no systems. I had no proven process for success. And as I started hiring team members, I was going through them like crazy because they would show up and they wanted to be around me because they saw the success and they thought, okay, well, some of that's got to rub off on me, but that just isn't how it works. And so they would come, they wouldn't see the same results for themselves. I wouldn't have time to really pour myself into them, to sit down with them and let them shadow me. So as a consequence, I was going through a lot of team members as well. So I wish I would have figured it out. It took me till 2012 to actually, bite the bullet and hire a coach. And then when I did, that was like where the exponential growth started. And it all was, the steps were just, okay, we got to put systems in your business. We got to document what you do on your best day. And we got to build this out so that it's trainable and it's scalable. And when we started doing that, man, it was 50 to 100% growth year over year for a nice 5-year run. It was.
Yeah, no, it's such an important lesson because I mean, even this academy, right? Like this academy came from, I'm a software vendor, obviously, right? And I think for me early, the ego was like, I'm doing great. I don't need help. I don't need anyone else's perspective, whatever, right? My ego was there. And what I realized when I started getting coaching myself and also enrolled in what's called the SaaS Academy is all these nuggets, right? Didn't mean I was doing a bad job over here, right? I was actually doing very well with one of the most successful software as a service companies in the space. Mm-hmm. But when I got into the SaaS Academy and I met all these other smart people, not only did I get that kinship where I didn't realize how lonely I was, because if I'm the boss, I can't talk to my people the same way I would talk to somebody. Can't call bullshit on you if they work for you the same way, right? But also, man, the nuggets you get out of this, the what you said before, I think was your talent doesn't transfer, right? Just these little things are, and I mean, I'll tell you what, we pay like 50 grand a year to be in the SaaS Academy, right? It's not cheap. And that motivates me to show up. I have to learn from it because I'm spending money on it, right?
Skin in the game.
And sure. Every single week, I learn something new that helps my business. And every single time you get on these calls, and John gets on these calls, and Dan gets on these calls. So like, I know we're selling an academy here, but the point is that it's because we believe in it so much, right? Is that every single time you watch one of these, you should be able to make your business incrementally better, right?
Well, that's it. And it compounds, right? I mean, even if it doesn't have to be a revolution every time you watch a training, but if you can get 1% better and you watch one training a week, the cumulative effect of that is insane. It's exponential, right? Because it compounds. It's not just 1 + 1 + 1 until 50. It's literally like the compound effect of that is you'll double your business.
Oh yeah. It's 1 hour. It's 1 hour a week. And listen, if you get one referral anywhere, right? In any market, anyone who's on here has got to be 10 grand plus, right? And you get one referral because you do the thing where you send the gifts to the work or whatever, right? That's $10,000. That pays for your coach for the whole year. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like it's people, they think about, and you said this comment about REW, and I appreciate it. They think about the cost sometimes instead of the ROI, or instead of looking at it as an investment. But man, every week, if you could add $10,000 because of the one thing, there's 52 weeks in a year. It's $500,000. It just blows my mind.
It's amazing. Even though I intuitively understand the ROI I get with stuff like what I do with you, I see it on my credit card statement and like, ow, that hurt. And I was, I see like this month is like well over 12 grand, and I'm like, ow. And then I look at my thing, I go, okay, well, we did 12 deals this month specifically from that PPC campaign. And then I do the math, like, oh, I'm getting like a 15 to 1 ROI. But it doesn't change the fact that you have that initial like knee-jerk reaction, like this is really expensive. But you've got to get ourselves out of that mindset, because think about it like this. If there was a stock you could, inside your TFSA or anywhere, go and put 10 grand a month into, and it was going to spit out 100 grand a month, like hello, you'd be stuffing money into that as fast as you possibly could, right?
Yeah.
But it's just a different mindset when it comes to paying a service provider. But that's not a plug to you. I literally just went through this in my head this week, and I thought to myself, wow, like even me, who's been doing this for years, still has that knee-jerk reaction where I see it as an expense, but it's not. It's an investment.
Yeah, and it's not meant to be a plug for us. It's meant to be a plug for you guys, you coaches. Like, here's the thing, is that you guys are amazing, and you're obviously there's a vested interest to build your brand and everything like that. But that's what we want for you guys too, guys. If you love this content and you're serious about increasing your business, call these guys. Call AJ. Call John. Call Dan. Hire them, because that's why they're here. They're awesome and they love to teach. But they also, we want to make sure that their business can flourish and they can continue to do this. So it's a plug for you, man, because this is great. And I think everyone on this list, go ahead and drop a comment if you think you should hire AJ, because I think your business could use, almost everyone's business could use a lot more of what you got going on here, man. So we really appreciate your time today, man. Again, for everyone who's dropped their emails and names, we will send you an invite to the replay for this, and to make sure we're on REW Academy Premium. And looking forward to the next session, my man.
Right on. Well, thanks for having me. Cheers, everybody.
All right. Thanks.
Powerful week.
Let's see it.